Hey everyone.
Very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We're just going to give everybody a couple of minutes before we start. We have a number of people joining still.
There's more note takers joining than anything else. I'm hoping I'm going to get some minutes back.
Okay, I think we're a minute into the meeting. I suggest we kick off. Just a quick housekeeping. The meeting is being recorded. We'll share the recording once the meeting has ended. Please drop in your questions on the chat. We will pick up the questions as we go along, or in the Q&A session once the speakers have finished addressing the subject and the topic. I'm Karan Mangat. I'm the note taker on behalf of the speakers today. A quick introduction of the two speakers. We've got Biliana. Biliana she's unique in the fact that she has worked 21 years in technology across 21 industries. She's an MSc in psychology. She works now at the intersection of human performance, neuroscience, and emerging technologies. Her role is in helping leaders strengthen resilience, decision-making, and cognitive effectiveness. Her belief is, and the unique perspective that she brings is the fact that human capabilities are becoming more valuable when AI reshapes the workplace. Mr. Wright has 25 years of experience. He has led complex business changes and technology changes. He has built a new number of people teams, and these days he is focused on governance and helping leaders navigate the practical realities of AI adoption. And in that, he ensures that there is a balance between technology, people, and business outcome. Welcome to both our speakers. I hand over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock in Dubai, middle of the afternoon, so appreciate you joining us. Middle of the afternoon in the UK, certainly. So I have a small confession. For those who don't know me very well, I know very little about AI. So it begs the question, what am I doing here? I know a little bit more than a lot of people, and I know certainly as much as some of the people who talk about AI. So a couple of quotes I came across recently. A guy called Geoffrey Hinton, who's the godfather of AI, sat on 60 Minutes, and he basically said, we don't exactly know how it works. So I'm in good company. We don't know how it works. We designed a learning algorithm, we fed it a whole bunch of data, and it produces complex neural networks, but we don't know exactly how it does it. And the fact that one of the Nobel Prize winners on AI doesn't really understand AI much more than we do, I think I can talk about it for a couple of minutes without running out of steam. What I want to do is, before Biliana and I start chatting, is I want to take about what actually is AI. Because we see it as this panacea that's going to solve everything. It's going to strip all of our jobs. It's going to take away our future. AI is going to kill us in its current state in the future. I grew up on sci-fi films, so that skewed my worldview a little bit. But in its basic infancy, it takes what we translate as language, it converts it into numbers called tokens. Those tokens form patterns. Those patterns form another pattern, which, based on probability, gives an output. That's converted back to whatever our language is. And that's basically it. The meaning is in how we interpret what we get back. It's not intelligence. artificial intelligence is a terrible name for it. But if you called it a probability engine, you probably will not sell as much as AI, and you probably will not have the ridiculous amount of investment that we're seeing. I think personally, and most of this is my opinion rather than pure fact, I think we give this meaning. When we read something that comes back that makes sense to us, we give it meaning in our heads. And therefore, when you interact with it, more and more you start treating it like it's real, like it's a person. And I know I'm guilty of this many times when I'm trying to get things done. I get frustrated with it. And Billy, I know you can comment on a psychologist, what help I do need. But you get a lot of information back, you make a decision, you get frustrated at the fact that it's wrong, and then you move on and carry on doing it. I think one of the things I want to frame this in, and particularly as most of the people here are in tech, is this is a non-deterministic system. And by that, I mean you cannot put input A and expect it to go through the alphabet and give you input Z 100% of the time, predictable outcomes. And that becomes problematic for us when you deal at scale, when you deal in processes, when you need accuracy. So it impacts us in everything we do, and therefore it will impact this belief system everybody has that AI is going to strip away a lot of jobs. Liliana?
Yeah, absolutely agree with probability, not intelligence, I have to say. And I want actually to give an overview of what has been done globally so far, because it's fascinating, at least for me. And I love numbers. I have a master's degree also in finance long time ago, and I'll give you some numbers so to shape what has been done. So far, the numbers that are out officially is that we spend $500 billion US on AI. But so what's more interesting is what exactly we did with $500 billion. That's $500 million, right? The only thing that we did with those money is to build data centers. That's data from Ken Griffin, who is the CEO of Citadel, and he was basically also sharing those numbers. So for years, it has been building data centers. And back in 2023, in addition to data centers, basically, it was recorded back in 2023 that we had about 43 synthetic data deals on the total amount of $262 million. So think about that. Like, we had to put the machines on the data centers. And after that, in 2023, we start also adding synthetic data. Synthetic data is the part where we let AI to get initial data, which is maybe copy of production data, but without the sensitive data, like sensitive finance data or health data, which is against GDPR and the law. And we allow AI to basically make like a massive balloon of huge amount, like big data transactions. And this is $262 million spent on creating a synthetic data, with the forecast right now that in the next 2-3 years, the amount of money is going to be at least 40% more than last year and this year. Last year and this year, we spent $600 to $700 million on synthetic data only. So think about that, like phases in like implementing AI. What has been done is just to create data centers and synthetic data, but we can't even get onto like hands-on creating proper AI models, especially in corporate world. And I'm talking with my background of the 21 years. So we didn't even touch properly the phase of creating AI models. And we are about to start that phase to create AI models. So I think the massive bubble, what we created around AI, and it would be interesting what everyone thinks right after we finish with Adam. But what do you think about that bubble? Because for me, this is a huge bubble we created, like AI is working, AI is great, and is gonna replace a lot of jobs, where actually in reality, we don't have yet AI models, basically the algorithms yet in some kind of, like, generally speaking, in a test phase, which is, for me, is fascinating. When people create, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna say that out loud, it's a FOMO, it's a fear of missing out. Like we have to do something, and let's create a fear so a lot of companies can jump in that balloon and fill in the gap of a lot of money needed for the global AI implementation. Say it this way.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with that. I think there's a lot of money that's been spent on investments in AI infrastructure. And to justify that, you've got to look at how we're going to create that value back in the organization. And when your biggest line on your P&L is labor, that becomes an easy target with all of the hype that's around it. I think I'm hearing a lot this week over the predictable jobs are going to go first. So anything that's repeatable, anything that's rules-based. And I fundamentally disagree with that. That sounds like automation from 15, 20 years ago. We've done a lot of automation. But if you're going to base anything that's rules-based on something you cannot predict exactly 100% what the outcome is going to be, you need somebody in the middle that says, is this output real? And to deliver that output, you have to be in a position where you understand what it is and have the skill to do that assessment. So what are you replacing if you've got people there? I think there's a lot of industries this is really going to impact, and you touched on tech. And Regina, you've got your hand up. Please, if you've got a question, stick it in chat, and Karen will come back to you in about 10 minutes' time. Tech for me is not problematic as in we know what we're doing. It's problematic because we seem to have abandoned the way we assess whether something's good or whether it's risky. I mean, AI, as we put it in, how do we assess, based on what you talked about for synthetic data, how do we assess whether it works or not? How do we assess that we're ready to put it live? How do we assess what impacts it's going to have on our processes and our business? If you've got more exceptions that come out of the process because it's fundamentally wrong, how do you know how many people you're going to need to deal with that?
Yeah, I think so let's take synthetic data, and then we'll go back to, like, what has been already replaced and what is about to be replaced, right? But if you go back to synthetic data, because that's really important. The biggest risk for synthetic data is that it has a huge volume of transactions, but they're the simplified versions of the different cases, regardless if it's a production or it's a warehousing or any kind of industry. It gets the numbers without any kind of a risk of exposing sensitive data, right? Which means that when you start building models, these models are using the synthetic data that is fake, right? In generally speaking. And when there are quite a lot of risks here, right? And they're all down to how we do the governance of using AI. So usually we have the different environments, right? When we build a production environment and then test and dev and the middle environments, then we have yet another environment, which is the synthetic data AI environment. And when you start moving data into that AI synthetic data environment, there is a huge risk to put it back to dev and to test environments, and then how that's going to break, basically, because we only have the simplified version of the data. And what Adam basically said, and I fully agree with you, is that at some point we're going to like, corporates are going to spend a lot of money of creating the AI synthetic data environment to get to certain models. And then when they put it into the dev environment, that's when everything is going to be like or it doesn't work, because now we've got a real data added on top of it, and then AI is going to be completely confused. So the second risk here is how we can fix that. The risk is how much we can like leverage between synthetic data and real data. So we can create models that are going to work in a then production environment without leaking information, basically. Because for me, I know I'm going to touch base something else, but there are not that many specialists, AI specialists around the world. So the way how quickly you can implement AI in any kind of industry is to have a third-party company hired to do any kind of AI models and AI implementation. But then leaking information and sensitive information to a third party is kind of a risk.
Okay, so we were talking earlier, and one of the things that we didn't agree on was its use of tech in creating software. I mean, I've seen it in enterprise, and I've got family members. My daughter's a full stack developer, and one of the things she's frustrated with in a banking environment is that it creates code that's Franken code, and it's awful, but it doesn't understand the context that it's playing in. So when you're changing something that exists, actually getting AI to be useful and save her time isn't working. And one of the things you said, yes, but when it's in a small business environment and you're building products, it's much easier.
It is, and I'm surrounded by developers that it took them around 7-8 months to build their own models. First of all, own environment, and then synthetic data, and then the model, all the prompts and the algorithms. So that is 8 months just to be able to create the model, and after this to run the model on real data to be able to get the meat out of it, like to start using in reality AI. So think about that. You've got 8 months. And okay, I agree with you that these are small companies, right? And we're talking about corporates. If for a small company takes 8 months at least to create a simple model, can you imagine to have full on a corporate with a lot of departments in it, and then you have within each department you have so many models. So we're not talking now 8 months, we're talking about a lot more. Okay, fact that we can put a lot more developers and smart people on the whole process, but we're all pioneers. So
that defeats the purpose of AI stripping away all of these roles. I mean, if tech can't take AI now because of the issues it causes,
you can't.
What's it going to do everywhere? The cost of bringing in extra developers so you can build a model to save time on developers, it's going to kill startups completely. But I think tech, well, you and I could talk about, sadly, ironically, because most people on here know I don't know anything about tech. So I could actually talk to you about tech all night, but there's a lot of other industries that I think are going to change radically. I don't think there's too many where it's going to be a wholesale replacement, but I do believe fundamentally when you look at supply chain, transport, anything that's trucked, anything that's in a train or in a ship, eventually will be completely AI controlled.
I personally want to see it before I believe it. I'm sorry, being negative here, but there are countries where, let's take transport. There are countries where the roads don't have even normal traffic signs and lines on the tarmac, right? So yeah, okay, if we're talking about like England, US, and like West Europe and US, that's fine. It will work. But when you get those AI-driven transport machines over a road where there's no tarmac and no lines, or like proper roads but no lines and no marks, then nothing. And then think about global transport. So you can't say, oh, we have a global transport and the whole industry is perfectly fine and it's driven by AI right now replaced, when you've got, let's say, 5 countries in the world where AI-driven machines can work. It breaks. It's just,
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to work.
I think it's going to take time to propagate everywhere, but if you look at the use in Tesla cars now, and as much as I personally don't like them, yeah, they're all developed as self-driving cars now. Now, they're not developed as self-driving cars specifically in towns where you've got painted roads, although they're not good enough to go off-road. But it's not going to be long where you get cameras in cars that can recognize the terrain. So if you take, I don't know, you're driving down the road to Pune, which as you come out of the main city, the road disappears and you're on a track. What you're looking for is holes in the road and other traffic. Now, it can detect the other traffic now. It either can or it won't be long till it can detect the roads and the road state. You're not going to need perfect roads. But when you've got limitations on driver's hours, particularly where you've got long haulage, and you're talking 5, 6, 10 hours in between cities, you're going to end up with transport that's completely automated.
Okay, but with like, what's your forecast? Like, how long is going to take until we've got get to that point?
I think we're just starting to introduce trucks now that are fully automated. I think once you see those work and the safety is not an issue and the legislation follows, I think the legislation is going to be a long pole. You're going to start getting investments in those quickly, especially when you look at the capital that's been thrown at data centers. But I think even if you do wholesale decimation, it's going to take years. Once you've got a vehicle and an asset and you're not going to swap it straight away, you're going to run that down as anybody else will.
Which basically means that in the next 5 years, just in that industry for transport, there will be like even more hunger of people rather than releasing jobs and getting rid of people.
We'll see. We'll see. I think you've got a particular passion for call centers and the impact that it's going to be there. I think you and I both agree warehouses are pretty much going to be fully automated regardless.
Yes. Warehouses, call centers, everything that has data entry, like the manual data entry and form filling, that's going to be directly replaced, and it will be quite easy. Everything that has routine tasks, all kind of tasks that are routine, that's going to be easily replaced. Everything that has like a back office, finance ops, analytics, reporting, all the reporting is quite right now. I shall say, like, if you let AI to generate some kind of report or analysis, you have to have really read every single line and put your head in to understand if it's correct or not, and then correct the model so the model can learn for the next time. And any kind of jobs that has strategy, because I have to admit that AI is really good in creating a strategy. Is it correct time-wise? Not really, but depending how you write the model and the prompts, but it's getting better and better in strategies, all kind of strategies.
What I've seen in LLMs, they produce what you believe is predictable. And for me, it looks good and you think, right, that's great. But when you dig into it, the depth isn't there to support the strategies. The numbers always come out wrong. The markets it tells you to act. I mean, you take that as a strategy document, that's fine. But just moving into industries, if you look at pharma and health, yeah, would I trust AI to give me advice on health? I'd give it reports and say, analyze it, look at my blood report and tell me whether that works. I wouldn't trust it with a chronic problem.
Sadly, what I can share from a very personal opinion and experience, I have a friend who actually had cancer. I will be very quickly sharing that story, but there are more and more people like my friends. So she has been having cancer for the past, I should say, 6 years or 7 years. And she used ChatGPT really massively to read her MRIs and doctor prescriptions and everything that it's connected to her health. She just put it in ChatGPT, and at some point ChatGPT was basically giving back information that that's not cancer, actually that is like an issue with hormones. And she stopped her pills, and at some point she didn't feel really well. She went back to Canada where she lived, and turned out that cancer spread all over the body, so it was too late, and she had to take a decision to end her life, which is, thankfully, to be honest, it's allowed in Canada. So I think we're going to start hearing such kind of stories more and more, and I don't think anyone is going to report at the beginning such kind of stories back to the health industry, which is sad. So sadly, I think we're going to lose a lot of people on a global level because they fully trust AI rather than putting a common sense on what's going on with their body.
Yeah, I don't think the big thing for me is we have no controls over the data that we enter. We treat this, and as a psychologist, you might have a different opinion. We treat it as if it's a person. So we tell it things you wouldn't tell other people, and we get a result back that makes sense to us. Now, I don't have the background or the expertise in most of these cases to say, is it what it's saying is correct? But that data's got to go somewhere.
Correct. We do treat AI as a human. The moment when you start arguing, and I do argue with Perplexity, I argue with ChatGPT, I argue with Claude, I argue with Copilot. The moment when we also when we start chatting with AI, and at some point we drop our intuition, which is very interesting, and we drop the common sense thinking and the logical thinking and risk assessment, then the moment when we do that and we fully trust AI, that is where the risk goes really high. So whatever we do, if I can just do an appeal to all of you, whatever you do, whichever AI you use, can you always put in the back of your mind that you have to have this sense of, I'm the human and I'm talking to a machine, and I need to go through the filter of, is that true? Is that true? Whatever you do, for work, for personal life, doesn't matter. Is that true?
So if we pull this back to roles, you and I are kind of agreeing it's not a wholesale stripping out of jobs. And I think you and I are in agreement that you're going to need people of high skill to know whether the output's right or wrong. And therefore, how do we put a value on that and implement it? What's your view on the impact on retail? Because you and I both worked in retail together.
True. Retail is going to help. AI is going to help a lot on e-com, and it's going to help on doing the assessment on profiling on people, which basically is just for e-com to sell them more and more work. But that's pretty much it. From there onwards, it can build, it can automate the processes on assets, on e-com assets. But from there onwards, it's going to take quite a long time to create models for retail.
I don't disagree. I think the bigger impact on retail is going to be the supply chain piece. What about hospitality and leisure?
I can't see much of AI implementation there, to be honest, but I might have a blind spot there.
Okay, fair enough. I think the last one I want to talk about before Karen shoots me on time is I've got quite a few friends who are teachers, and they're saying more and more teaching is moving online, and it's having a significant impact on the way they teach children. Now I can see a world where things like language learning, because LLMs are particularly good at large language models, I can see a situation where foreign language tuition just disappears completely. You stick something in your ear. In the 1980s and 90s, we'd have called it a Babel fish, for those who are Douglas Adams fans. And you get real-time translation. You can get that through glasses now. But I think you're going to get more and more non-core skills, things that like maths and English will stay just for grammar. But I think more and more non-key skills will start disappearing. What are we going to do?
Yes, for
Yeah.
some of the languages, that's going to take a little bit longer, but it will disappear.
Yeah. So what impacts on our teaching and our children from AI? Are those teaching jobs going to go?
It will. I think within 3 years, schools are going to disappear.
That's a big commitment.
Well, yeah, we don't have time to go into it, but there is a, backstory on that, and I can explain why 3 years.
Okay, fair enough. Karen, we're almost bang on time. We could talk for another 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, there are.
We're getting some questions piling up.
Yeah, so it was an interesting discussion. I'm sure folks have enjoyed it. Some of them have got comments on the points that were raised. I will start with a point that has been raised by Rajendra. So the first thing that he spoke about was the fact that the companies are already bypassing things like RPA, data, and ERP, and they're now thinking that AI is going to fix their history. At this juncture, organizations are not looking beyond chat. Do you agree with that, or do you think that the companies have already started looking at models beyond chat and started working with implementation of AI on a broader scale, which is impacting the workforce?
I think we're already seeing that. I mean, I saw that changes in chat and chat box 4 or 5 years ago as they started to get smarter. I think you're seeing cases now where people are hijacking chat box to produce code and using the chat box's token count to get their response back. So I think the chat itself has still got some more evolvement to do to guard against, I wouldn't call it malicious coding, but it is a bit cheeky. I think there's a lot more being implemented as pointers, proof of concepts. I think there's less control over how that's done at organizational level, particularly enterprise. But I think if you look at SMEs and personal use, the adoption of AI is huge compared to other technologies for personal performance. Biliana?
Yeah, I agree. Fully.
Well, that was short and sweet.
Yeah.
So when you talk of adoption, this is not a question from the audience, but this is a question from me. What do organizations need to do to improve adoption? Because there is a flip side to it. Not all organizations are adopting AI. There are challenges from a workforce standpoint because they believe that might lead to redundancies.
It's no different for me. You've got this fear mongering. Sorry, Biliana, I jumped in there. You've got this fear mongering for what's going to happen. You've got a lot of hype in the papers. Jesus, that's showing my age.
Yep, social media, call it now. Social media, not papers.
Yeah, thank you. You've got a lot of hype in social media over it. So yeah, people are naturally going to worry, but this is a change management exercise. Exactly the same as if you put a new ERP in, it's going to change the way people work. My thing on adoption, more personally, it's easier to pick something up and try it yourself to improve how you're doing it than it is to put in an enterprise. And it's far easier to put it in a small business because there's less people impact than it is to put it in an enterprise. But I think the bigger impact is not so much the adoption, it's even before you start there. It's what is the right thing to do for your organization and your customers? Where do you start? How do you assess it?
I think like right now for some small organizations, the driver to implement AI is a fear. fear of missing out, fear of being last in the industry, fear of not being capable within several years to do the services or create products, etc. And fear is the last thing to be the driver. And what if someone creates basically training companies on specific industries and start training really people what exactly means to implement AI in that industry or that industry or that industry, then it will be a very successful business, by the way. And that will help really small businesses to understand what is AI. That is a probability, not intelligence. I fully agree with Adam on that. And how to use it with simple examples. And then to decide if they want it on that phase of their business, their company life, or not. Because sadly, it's kind of like in between, like you can't just stay and watch how AI evolves. You have to get involved. But then how much you want to involve in that, because you have to put more budget to be able to get more people to start running AI models for your specific business. And most of the companies don't have those money. And if they go to the bank to say, hey, I need more, loans to increase my loan because I need to put more people in my team for AI, I'm sure the banks will be like, you want what? I'm sure the reaction will be like, forget about it, So it's kind of that it's just in between. And something I want to stress on, it's not like AI, when companies create AI models for the different industries, it's not like I'm going to take that and copy paste all over different companies in the industry, because it doesn't work like that. It's not going to work like that, because every model is for itself, and every company is unique, as long as yes, the processes are same, but the business and the meet and greet within the business is different. That's why you can't just copy and paste models around.
That actually goes back to a point raised by Daniel. You'd mentioned, Adam, logistics. So the discussion on the chat was that blockchain was meant to automate logistics, but it never succeeded. So why do you think that AI is going to be replacing the drivers there?
Okay, I mean, I disagree with the framing of blockchain. Blockchain's about permanence and making sure that you can't alter records. That's useful in logistics, but not about automate it. I think my views on logistics are purely about, you have limitations on people. Those people limitations are being taken away by technology. So you're no longer restrained to moving a vehicle at 8 hours, 9 hours a day, or switching drivers. And people are expensive.
Yeah.
That goes to a point called out by Santosh, where he says that companies' workforce productivity is being measured by the usage of the tokens, right? Now, the moment you start using a larger number of tokens, the cost goes up. So how does that offset from a human standpoint?
Do you want to take that one, Biljana?
I'm trying to find the question.
So let me rephrase that question, Biljana.
Yes.
Today, a lot of companies measure the workforce in terms of the number of tokens that are being spent when they leverage AI. In certain cases, the total number of tokens actually becomes more expensive than the use of a human.
Yeah.
So how do you see that playing out in the future?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay. Can I?
Yeah, go on.
I think that's a ludicrous measure of performance, to see an adoption, to see whether people can waste money in an organization just to hit a marker. I think it's the wrong set of measurements completely. What are the right ones? Couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I'd have to think about it. But when you use your entire company's budget by April in a calendar year, because you've encouraged that hit, which has happened recently, you've lost the plot. You spend all this money implementing AI to improve performance and productivity, and then you cannot, without investing further money, you cannot utilize that for another 9 months in the year. Doesn't make any sense to me.
But you're not going to see any return on investment for at least a year and a half, 2 years.
You're going to see none if you can't use it.
There's one for you. There's one for you, Biljana. Talia is curious as to why I think the schools are going to shut down in the next 3 years.
Me too.
So the whole system, the whole education system right now is quite broken, and every one of us know that. Kids are mainly bored at school, and hence their attention span is very short, because TikTok is much more interesting than whatever they study in school. So when smart kids want to study something, they go to online educational platforms. Those platforms right now are measuring, when you log in, the platform basically measures the kids or the person on 3 levels. It measures if you're studying with visual, through the visual sense, or through reading, or through hearing. And then after that test, it starts giving lessons to the kids depending on which way you learn very quickly. And then it gives you all the homework and exercises and everything that is around that topic, depending on which of those hearing, vision, or reading sense is more developed for you. And then from there onwards, start developing your senses and learning skills. And that cannot be replicated by the current educational system, because that is so much better and well advancedly done, that if you take the educational system, which is part of the government, the government cannot move with the speed that the software, which is also AI driven as well, part of it, can really run through the years. And those softwares has been used for the past 20 something years, and they get better and better by the day, literally. And more parents prefer to put their kids into homeschooling using those softwares rather than doing the standard traditional educational system. And you're going to see more and more people pulling their kids out of the standard schools and doing the homeschooling. And when I start actually digging into that and start speaking with a lot of people how they do it, like parents, the first thing what came to my mind is like, does that mean that the kid is not social? Like how are the social skills? And they said, well, I'll give you one example. The guy has 3 kids. They're all homeschooling. Both the parents are homeschooling the 3 kids. Each of the kids can basically speak fluently 3 or 4 languages, much better than the kids same age in the school. But they finish studying within 3 hours a day. That's it. So compare that with 6-7 hours at school, 3 hours and 6-7 hours on the other side. And after they finish the 3 hours, then they go swimming and for tennis, and they have so many sports activities. They have so many activities that actually the social life is much better than the parents, right? So because more and more people can see the difference between kids that are outside the standard traditional school system they basically prefer to pull the kids out. And I saw some kind of predictions on how long it's going to take to have like a lot, like around 50% of the population to pull the kids out. So imagine when the kids drop from school, schools are going to start closing.
I agree with some of that, but I think Talia's point for me is really salient. Is you put children in an environment for a number of years, they learn the cultures of that environment and how to behave. I've seen homeschool kids who are single children who've not had the opportunity in your example, and their social skills are awful. And
Yeah,
there will no doubt be other environments where you compress it to 3 or 4 hours a day, fabulous, but they will not have the facilities or the parents or the family around them that will allow them to do those sports. A lot of them will just sit in front of the TV, watch TikTok, play games. I can't
not the homeschooling kids, apparently.
Well, when you're doing the sample that you've got, yeah, I would not be surprised with a high strike rate. But when you open it up to a general population, those stats change. Same example for your test data, where you've got artificial's test data. When you put it out into a real world population, the metrics change.
True, but then think about that. The homeschooling is going to evolve, and it's going to evolve towards socializing the kids. So I'm not saying, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just, thinking and agreeing that around 3 years from now, everything is going to change. But the whole homeschooling system is going to change completely.
So let's close out the fact that there are different thoughts around how the schooling is going to be affected by AI.
We agree to disagree.
Yeah, I'm going to give the mic to Santosh. He has an interesting question. Santosh, you want to ask your question? You can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Karan. Appreciate it. It's been really some new insights so far that I've kind of made note of. My question was primarily around, I work in large transformation projects, right? Now, the difference is what would AI bring to the table when customers want to evaluate certain outcomes, right? Will the AI tool compared to people help them to take better decisions, the right decisions, and what could they expect in comparison to projects being driven and reported by people to what AI would help them evaluate and take better decisions? That's where I'm kind of alluding to that question.
It's a great question. I mean, Bilyana and I have both worked in large transformations, so she will have a slightly different view than me. I'm going to go back to something I said earlier, and if you have a scroll through the chat, it's something that Dan asked. It comes to answer Dan's point as well. I think when you put a complex environment into a language model and you expect an outcome, you can use that outcome, you can generate it with low-skilled person that looks a very interesting piece of work. So whether that's legal, and I'm just reading off his list here, whether it's legal, it's contracts, it's policy, it looks great, it looks perfect. But unless you've got the skill to actually create it yourself, you cannot assess whether that's right. And I think the same problem happens in software testing. You've got to be highly skilled in it to know whether your output's correct. But more for you, Santosh, in your question, I think the problem is going to be if you cannot predict what the outcome can be, how are you going to test it? Because you can't say, I've got this test scenario now and I'm expecting result A, big tick. I'm now going to pay my supplier or my SI because it's worked. How are you going to know what's accurate and what it should be? You're going to end up with a huge range of possible outcomes. And if it fits within that landing strip of outcomes, you're going to go, yeah, okay, that's done. That's accurate. And to do that and to know whether it fits in, you've got to have more skill than just to stick some data in, see something on a screen and tick a box that says yes. So I think although a lot of jobs are going to go, I think the ones that remain are going to be highly skilled.
Yeah. You can use AI to analyze the whole process, but not to replace the whole process and to tell you that the output is correct.
Is it okay? Let me just add another element to this, which both of you have touched upon. It is so what we are pretty much saying is that there is certain data-driven analysis that can be done with AI, but it is that intuitive understanding of what is happening within a transformation where AI is never going to be able to help.
Well, not for now, for sure. From what we know about AI, because AI is going to evolve, right? We don't know how it's going to evolve. It really depends on us humans, I have to say. Oh, at least I believe so far. Might change that through years, but for now, it can be done, and you don't know what's going to happen. Might be self-learning at some point.
That's pretty much, I think, we are done with questions. I can't see any of the questions. There's a comment from Reynold on an issue that he had with a demo given by Snowflake, where they did state that they would be able to do certain, they would be able to showcase a certain outcome, but they haven't actually showcased that outcome. So he is questioning whether AI systems are just being built and sold, whether there is a way to measure the ROI. How do you evaluate the outcome of AI? Any thoughts on those?
That's not.
Absolutely. I don't think you can do it. I think the problem is if you cannot predict an outcome and you don't know what your error rates are on a given process, then you can't forecast the cost of that process. And therefore your ROI is just going to be a huge range. And sometimes that range can be so wide, it becomes meaningless. I think this is the biggest problem. This is why we're going to end up putting in systems, because we're pushed to do it rather than it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. So to conclude, can I ask both of you to sum up one particular element? Given that we've got a large number of leaders on the in attendance today, what should they watch out for in terms of people impact when they are looking or thinking of AI implementations? What kind of roles do they believe they should be retaining? How do they evaluate people in that retention? Is there any light that you could share on that?
Let the psychologist go first.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Every role that is repetition can go first. Every role that is data analysis can go first. Data entry. Same questions like call center style can go first, and operational repetition tasks can go first. That can be actually easily replaced. But what I really would suggest is, rather than letting the people leaving the company, I would rather suggest for companies to reconsider and train them to AI so they can actually keep the people, the human factor, and completely transfer them into the people between the business and the AI developers, because these people are already the one who are doing the nitty-gritty job, the repetition task, and they know the culture of the company, they know the people, they know the processes. And if you take those people, because they are with big value, and you trade them with AI to be that middle human factor and between developers and the business, that will be a great way to speed up the whole AI implementation into a business.
I agree with most of that. I think there's not going to be a wholesale replacement of jobs. I think those companies that are letting go of 300-400 people are quickly finding out how many of them they actually need and rehiring. I think it's a mistake to think that AI is this magic pill that's going to do us. We had this conversation when it was the internet coming in. Karen, you had this conversation when the wheel came in. Sorry, I've known Karen for a long time. So I think what's going to happen is AI is very good at pattern recognition. It's very good at handling large data sets and looking at patterns. It's very good at image ones, which is why in radiology it outperforms people. I think in instances and use cases where it outperforms people, you will get it replacing people very quickly. And you'll get it in a case where the outcome, it doesn't matter if it's slightly wrong. So if in a call center and you're dealing with somebody on the other end of a phone and you've got AI dealing with it, if it makes a mistake and it's correctable, then you'll keep using it because the people don't mind that interaction. Where you cannot afford to have that as a wrong decision. So banking transfers, the medical theatre, the military theatre, where these mistakes cost people's lives, you will not use it until it changes, until we get general intelligence. And when we do get that, we're in a much bigger world and a much bigger problem we've got now. Our problem now is we can't evaluate the impact of it before we put it in.
And anything production will be quite risky as well.
I think, Karen, just to summarize, I think what's really interesting to me when you get people who are deep experts in AI saying they don't know how they do it, and then you get Anthropic's co-founder Christopher Nolan said the other day, we've found internal states, I'm just reading this out, we've found internal states that mirror joy, satisfaction, fear, grief, and unease. They don't know what they've created. So finding use cases in our world of where it will become useful will change very rapidly.
Excellent, excellent. I don't think there's any more questions. I hope everybody's got what they were looking for out of this session. I'd like to thank both of you. The only point I want to add is that I am heading a platform where there is a lot of transaction between companies with respect to people, and much of what you have said is pretty much reported by the platform on a nearly day-to-day basis. So once again, thank you all for attending. Really appreciate the time you've given us. And thank you, Adam and Biljana. Your insight was very useful. I'm sure people found that interesting.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening, day, morning.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. We'll share the recording with everyone as soon as that is ready. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.